Welcome back to another episode of the Enigma cast. So, this Monday was the uh, gun rally in Virginia, and I gotta give props to those rally goers. Even though they were armed, um, there were no cases of violence at all. So I gotta give props to those people. Those are responsible gun owners. And look, I live in a blue state, but I support the Second Amendment. Um, I just want stronger background checks. If we could get universal background checks to prevent lunatics from getting their hands on firearms, that's what I want. You know, um, I know that in 2004, the assault rifle ban expired and it was not renewed by the Congress at that time. And you can see the correlation of the spikes in mass shootings ever since then. Um, and also, uh, I got to give props to the FBI for apprehending those white terrorists that call themselves the base. It's a bunch of these white supremacist terrorist organization. One of them's an illegal Canadian immigrant. How come we never hear about Trump wanting to build a wall along the Canadian border? I just hope they deport his ass. So I got to give props to law enforcement for catching those guys. And funny enough, did you guys know that Al Qaeda means the base in Arabic? So these white supremacists are white Al Qaeda, basically. But the reason this whole gun rally happened in the first place is because of um, Virginia turning blue. So last November, the Virginia State House went to the Democrats, and now Virginia is a blue state. They've got a Democratic government, and they've got a Democratic state house. And the reason that Virginia went blue is because of demographic changes over the last decade or so, maybe a little bit more. There have been a lot of immigrants moving in from Asia, in particular, into Virginia, and that's changed the demographics. And a lot of these gun people at the gun rally were just rural people from rural Virginia who are a vast majority of these uh people, these rally goers. And it's kind of like, they're getting a taste of their own medicine because elections do have consequences. And now that these people are in the minority, they know how it feels because um Republicans have been doing the same thing with abortion, where they get the majority in the state house and then they pass these punitive anti-abortion laws. And now, when Democrats want to push some sensible gun reform, these people literally get uh, all up in arms over this. These people are literally getting triggered, and I'm sorry for all these gun puns, but you know, it's just these people are just right wing snowflakes. You know, like now they know how it feels to uh, be in the minority and have your rights infringed because there was a story about a woman in, I think, Wisconsin, an Indian American woman, who was actually charged with murder because she got an abortion, or I think she went into Chicago to get an abortion, and they basically convicted this woman. But I think what happened is she was eventually she was the charges against her were eventually dropped. And this woman's name, if I can remember, was let me see here. What is her name? Um, some Indian American woman. All right, well, whatever. I don't remember her name off the top of my head. But if I find the article, I'll link all of that stuff down in the description below. Um, and the other thing too, going back to demographic changes, is that I was reading a couple of articles this morning about um about how the Democratic Party is actually losing white working class voters. And the main reason is because of elitism and geography. So the Democratic Party is still holding strong with white college educated voters, but they've practically lost the white working class. And the reason for that is because Democrats no longer represent that segment of the population. A lot of these Democrats have basically turned into corporatists. They're taking a lot of this corporate PAC money, and they're taking donations from wealthy donors. And in 2016, Hillary called them a basket of deplorables. So, you know, well, like, why would you expect these people to turn out and vote for you? And this one article on New Republic basically said these Midwestern Rust Belt voters are gone. And one of the remedies the article suggested was to just focus on the minority vote, and that's how Obama won with his coalition. They call it the Obama coalition. So, um, I think I think that's what the Democratic Party should do. Um, because they've practically lost, white people except for college educated white people. The Republican Party is 90% white. So, um, you know, I don't think they're ever going to get that, you know, section of their base back. Um, I mean, the only two candidates I could think of that can kind of appeal to them are Andrew Yang and Bernie Sanders, and that's about it. Um, and the other thing is geography. A lot of um, these Republican voters live in rural areas, and and the way the electoral college is set up, it favors rural and suburban voters more than urban voters. And the thing is, a lot of Democratic voters live in urban areas, and just just condensed in these condensed you know metropolitan areas like New York, LA, Chicago, which are Democratic strongholds. And that's the problem, is that Republicans are spread out, whereas Democrats are just densely packed. And that's basically how, Republicans win. The other thing too is turnout. It's a lot of the Republican voters are much older, more religious. And the other thing we can't forget about is gerrymandering. A lot of these Republican state houses are gerrymandering and setting up these BS voter ID laws. We can't forget about that to prevent minorities from voting. And yeah, and a lot of these Republican voters are just older white folks who have nothing better to do than vote. So yeah, I mean, that about does it for this episode of the Enigma Cast. I'll leave all the articles down below. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Uh, and subscribe if you want to see more.